Hello and welcome to Chapter Chat with Sarah. Here we share true life stories. Today's guest is Isabella, and her story is a chapter in my book, Healing Your Life. Isabella, hello and welcome.
Hi.
Isabella, you are chapter 11 in my book, Healing Your Life. And in that chapter, you started out telling your story about when you were a little girl and you were excited about sitting in front of the TV and watching MTV. I think it's during the era when that was just coming out, and you dreamed about being just like those stars that you were seeing on TV. So, could you share for us a little bit about, being that little girl, what you were seeing? I think your subtitle for that chapter was I wanted to be striking, audacious, and awesome. So, kind of fill us in if you could.
I guess growing up, I was a dreamer, and I always dreamed of having, what you see on TV, a perfect family with the dad and the mom and the kids, and you having this beautiful picture perfect life. And then you don't realize, a lot of things that you see on TV aren't real.
You did express that you were seeing a goal in life that you could really become something. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, I guess I was definitely in a rush to grow up and have a family.
Well, and talking about family, I know that you said that you came from an Italian family and that you thought that it was a typical Italian family with like the smell of the spaghetti sauce on the stove and stuff. So, what was it like growing up in this close Italian family?
Well, every Sunday, my mom would be making our big Sunday dinner, our Italian food. It would always be the same. My mom's sauce cooking, and we'd wake up to the smell of her cooking. And there was six of us with my parents. So I thought everything was normal. A lot of screaming and yelling.
You have had more than one tragedy in your life, but in the book, you talked about your brother who you absolutely adored, and he seemed that after he came home from military service, can you share then a little bit about what changed, how he was before he went in the service, and then how he was after he came home?
Well, I was young when he left to go in the service. He was always my older brother, so I always just looked up to him. I always thought he was cool. He was just my big brother. He was the coolest guy ever. And, then he went away. And when he came back, he just wasn't the same person anymore. He was sleeping a lot. He was very not present. He didn't, he was there physically, but mentally you could tell he wasn't there.
So, do you think it was just the memories of what he saw while he was in Iraq, or was there something else going on?
I think it must have been definitely, I think he was definitely suffering some, I don't know if it was some depression or some demons or some things he had seen and done in Iraq. Maybe some PTSD he was dealing with. I think he was covering it up with maybe some drugs and alcohol.
And we hear that a lot about veterans coming home. It's a lot to try to adjust and come back and live in a normal type setting after, serving a tour like that. So you saw a decline in him then, and he was at your home then, living with your parents and siblings at the time?
So when he came back from Iraq, he would right before he died, he wasn't living with us. He came to visit and he came to stay with us for 2 weeks.
Okay, okay. And you said before he died, so we haven't shared that is something, you talked about in the book, but we didn't share yet here. So he did actually die. What happened? Because I know that loss of your brother and how he died really took a toll on your life.
So I didn't know this at the time because I was younger and my parents weren't telling me everything. But apparently, he had been suffering with a lot of mental illness when he came back out of the military. And he had actually overdosed 2 times prior to this and was going through rehab and trying to get help. And he had just gotten out of rehab and he came to visit us and he stayed with us for 2 weeks. And I didn't know all the details because I was young and naive, and I was just looking forward to seeing my brother and spending time with him. So I spent every day with him while he was here for the 2 weeks and, tried to spend as much time with him as possible. And then, yeah, the day after he left, I said goodbye to him around midnight, said I loved him, took him to the airport. And then the next morning, my dad found him dead.
Wow. So Do you think that it was just an overdose or attempted suicide, or you're not really? Was it ever determined?
It was definitely an accident. Yeah, there were drugs involved. I think it was more shock that killed me. Definitely the shock killed me. It ended up we had to bury him on my birthday.
Oh wow.
And it was an open casket funeral. So I think the idea of staring at my brother in an open casket on my birthday really messed me up for a little while.
It would. It would, understandably. All right, let's talk about relationships. When it comes to choosing men in your life, you've been married how many times? And you have um, kind of an attraction, kind of missing some of the red flags you've shared before.
So I got married very young. Um, I got married to my high school sweetheart. We met when we were 15 in high school, and we got married when I was 21. I feel like I was in a rush, that's after my parents had divorced, and I was kind of in a rush to grow up and just wanted my own family since my family became so dysfunctional. And got pregnant like a couple years after being married, and then we divorced. He was very verbally abusive. I thought that, screaming and yelling because that's what I grew up in was normal. And then, living into my own life and my own home, I realized it wasn't normal.
So, how old were you? And then you had a child. So, how old was it was a son? Is that correct?
Yeah, I had my son.
How old was your son when you decided that you wanted a divorce?
I think he was like 3 or 4.
So then you were single for a period of time before you met somebody else, or you dated for a while, or what was?
No, actually, during my divorce, I jumped right into another relationship. And the guy I actually knew from, who was my first boyfriend in middle school, that we seemed to have a lot in common. He was going through a divorce from his high school sweetheart at the same time as me. And we both had our children were very close in age. And so we kind of just jumped into this relationship very fast.
Did he have children from prior?
Yeah. So he had a son and my son, and they were the same age. I think they were only about 2 weeks apart. So we had a very similar story.
So you thought this transition, the getting a divorce and then, meeting back up with somebody that you knew that this was just all going to be, a good, happy life with your family and with your son, right?
Yes.
Well, tell us about that.
Oh, it turned out to be a nightmare. I got pregnant right away. And he ended up being addicted to cocaine and pornography, and it went bad very, very quick. And I was pregnant, and then I felt trapped.
So in the book, I think that you talked about you kind of had a fairy tale life with him, though.
Yes, like at the beginning of the relationship, a lot of love bombing. We traveled every weekend, always giving me expensive gifts, traveling with the kids, just showing me a lifestyle that I'd never had before. He was very wealthy, so to me, it was like, Prince Charming showed up and saved me from my divorce, and we were gonna have this amazing life together.
And so, what took the wrong turn then? I see, understand about the drugs and his other issues that he had, but what was it exactly that made you decide that you needed to get out of this marriage? That it just you couldn't exist in it any longer.
The drugs, the drugs,
Okay.
yeah, with the kids in the house, and it was just not a good situation to be in. When people are on drugs, one minute they're nice, and then the next minute you don't even know who they are.
Were you working at the time, or were you dependent on him? Supporting you. So, I mean, because you were pregnant and had another baby. So,
Yeah, I felt trapped, yes, because when the baby was born, I was obviously not working. I was on my maternity leave, and then that's when, the second the baby was born, that's when everything really just I was seeing the red flags when I was pregnant, but it was kind of too late at the time. And, I was just hopeful that things were going to change once the baby was born. And then, the baby was born and he didn't come to the hospital because I don't know where he was or what he was doing. And, he would show up to the hospital and lay in the bed next to me and say that he's so tired. He was out all night when meanwhile I just had a baby in the hospital. So he was very supportive.
So he wasn't really all excited about being a new dad and being there for his wife and new baby, right?
No, he was, just partying like a rock star.
Wow. So, you decided at some point that this just wasn't going to work, and tell us a little bit about the day or night, whichever it was, that you decided that that was it, that you needed to escape, because I think that's a correct term. You had to escape. You had to sneak out during the night, and you had a plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I came home from the hospital, I had my son and I had a newborn baby, and he wasn't there. And, I realized there were a lot of drugs in the bedroom and in the bathrooms, and just finding drugs all over the house after being in the hospital, for a night or two, having a baby. And coming home to that was really shocking. I knew I had to get out of the house with the kids and leave because things were not going to get better.
And what was the plan?
I didn't really have a plan. I had the baby and my son, and my plan was to run as far away as possible. But realistically, my plan was just one day at a time. I didn't really know where I was going or what I was doing. I just knew I had to get away from him. I was ready to give up and I couldn't do it anymore. And I didn't know what to do with this little baby. I had these two babies. I left my older son with his dad at the time because I was dealing with a sick baby, and it was everything going on was just so much. I thought that flying to my sister's, leaving the baby with her would have been she would have been able to take care of him better than I could.
So you did take the baby then and drop him off?
We went, I mean, the baby went up there and we spent a couple days up there, and I couldn't leave him. I couldn't, I mean, that was the plan going in there, was for me to leave him there. And then something just, I couldn't leave him.
I would imagine you looked in his eyes and held him and said, "You gotta figure this out. There's gotta be a way."
Yes, definitely.
So you did turn to, a organization that is, close in Florida where you lived at the time, and can you tell us a little bit about, the resources or how you found out and contacted them that kinda helped you through this time? Because we want the listeners to know that you don't have to be stuck. There are places to turn, there are resources, there are things that you can do so you can escape a situation like what you were in. So, what was it that, you had to do, or did you talk to somebody, or how was it that you found out about this resource that you turned to?
Yes. So out of desperation, I was just looking for help. No matter anywhere I could find help, I was, online, and I ended up finding a place called Women in Distress, and they work with women. And I called them and they said, come. They asked if I was being abused, and they said I could come there with the baby, and they were very helpful.
How long were you there? Did you actually were you able to move in there, or was it an out
They have housing. I didn't need housing. Um, I didn't want to live there, but they do offer housing to women that are struggling and look, financially, more financially than I was at the time. So they did help me. They asked if I had an attorney to help, get the whole child support and stuff figured out like that. They helped me file for food stamps and assistance. They helped me file for a lot of assistance. Um, they helped me find an attorney. They gave me gift cards for gas money. They gave me supplies for the baby, diapers, anything we needed like that. So they were very helpful.
So, you would recommend then, somebody being in a similar situation that, go ahead and do what you did, just, online, check things out.
Definitely look for whatever help you can in the area, because there is help out there.
So the other thing that you shared with me personally, and I thought that it would be very good to share with the audience, and that is, what part does God play in your life in, knowing everything that you've gone through, what you are still going through, trying to raise 2 children, being single, and, but having God in your life, that is, you seem to kind of find extra strength in prayer. Like there's a
Yes.
resource like what is stress, but then there's God. So how important is that to have faith that everything's going to be okay and God is watching over you?
I think that having faith is the only thing that got me through all of this, and praying to God, and knowing that, God was gonna save us. God didn't give me these children. My life, God wanted us to have a happy life, and I would prayed and prayed and prayed, and I sat in church a lot of the weekends alone and just cried and cried, and God eventually is gonna make things work out.
So what is it that you want for your future? What are you looking for or striving for? Looking back, maybe there were some mistakes. We all make mistakes that made, and so going forward, learning from that,
Yeah.
what is it
I
you hope for in the future?
I definitely ignored a lot of red flags in the beginning. And I feel like in the future, everyone's dream is not to be single. I want a husband. I want a partner in life. I want a healthy relationship. And I just want a peaceful life. I definitely think I kept attracting, very toxic relationships because maybe I didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like, because I was searching for, I wanted to save men. I wanted to fix men. I thought men screaming at me and all this stuff was normal, until now that I've grown up and I've realized that I think I need to start seeing red flags and making different choices in life.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say red flags comes up so much because it seems like we are so immersed in the situation and we sort of ignore the red flags. And can't emphasize enough how important it is. I think in the book Healing Your Life, there's story after story about, people ignoring the red flags and then, just completely being devastated and heartbroken and more than heartbroken, almost, you know, giving up on life itself. So, gosh, would you say that your path now is that you're a little more determined, you're stronger, you're looking back and saying, I'm not going to do this again?
Definitely. Yes. I'm definitely setting boundaries, and don't settle. Don't settle, and love yourself and your kids to know, I want to have a normal, healthy relationship. I want them to see a healthy relationship. That way they know. I mean, I've made so many mistakes already. I hopefully I can fix that and show them a normal, healthy relationship in the future.
For other women out there, or even men, but how do you have to give yourself the self-confidence and pump yourself up that you deserve better and that stay strong and move on so that you're like you said, the important part is your children seeing what a healthy relationship looks like so that they don't repeat or choose wrong spouses in their lives. So help us to understand you've been through so much, Isabella, and you've survived so much, and you're a great mother. Love your kids immensely. So, how is it that you see your go forward, and how would that help other people?
I think really just loving yourself. You have to. I think a lot of these relationships, I was broken. I was very broken at the time after my brother died, and I think I was looking for love, and it was looking for the wrong things and settling for the wrong things. And when you respect yourself and you love yourself, I think you'll attract better.
That's a good point. So you have to respect and love yourself first, and then you're not settling. So, which I think so many of us do. So, well, I can't
Mhm.
thank you enough for spending this time and before we close, if there's anything else that you want to say or share that I haven't asked or brought up, please use this time to do that. I so enjoyed being able to connect because I know it was really hard with your schedule.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm glad I got to do this also. And I think, we just need to, as women, stay strong and love ourselves and not settle and have faith. and pray and surround ourselves. The most important is surrounding yourselves with a group of, if it's not family or friends or whatever, but they say the 5 closest people that you spend the most time with, if you look at them, you can tell someone can look at the 5 most people that you spend the most time with, and they can tell you what your future is gonna be like. So if you're hanging out with people that are bringing you down or that are doing drugs or that are talking down on you or being abusive, you're not gonna go down the right road. You wanna surround yourself with people that are caring and loving, and you'll end up feeling a lot better about yourself and going in the right direction with people that lift you up.
And I think that's very important. So avoid toxic relationships for sure. So
Yes, definitely. Yeah, anything that's not, if something's bringing you down, if someone's talking down on you, if someone's physically, mentally abusing you, you got to know when to walk away because you don't deserve that. Nobody does.
nobody does. You're right. You're absolutely right. You have a good heart. You're a wonderful person, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share this today and being so open and honest. So thank you, and wishing you the best.
Thank you.
So that's all for today. Before we go, we want to let you know that both of these books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookstores. You can also follow us on my website, www.sarahshaw.org, on Facebook at Sarah Shaw, on X, Instagram, and on YouTube. Please tune in for our next guest, Maria. And until then, remember this verse. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28.
You've got to run.